Let's get started back. Yes, ma'am. Oh, man, that's crazy. All right, so let me introduce myself. Thank you for saying that. My name is, I just assume people know me. My name is Stephen Sparks. I am the pastor here. That's Brennan Ballard in the back running the video. He is the tech guru around here and keeps everything functioning. I am in my 20th year of full-time ministry. Before I was in full-time ministry, I was an attorney in Oxford, and before that in Tupelo. And before that, I was in school, of course, to become an attorney. And then my undergraduate degree, and my law degree is from Ole Miss. My undergraduate degree is from Ole Miss in engineering. And graduated from Baldwin High School, Baldwin, Mississippi, in 1989. When I was a student at Ole Miss, I worked in the Wesley Foundation there. I got my call to ministry in the Wesley Foundation. I worked with the Conference Council on Youth Ministries. And then in 1993, I took a job at Water Valley United Methodist Church as their youth director for 2.5 years. And if any of y'all remember Mim Carpenter and Benny Turnage, they were in my church, and really close with those folks. And so I was there for 2.5 years. Worked my way through law school working as a youth director. It was a great balance. Also worked I clerked. I was a research assistant for Guff Abbott. I helped him write his section and did all the research for his section in the Mississippi Civil Practice Handbook. And we wrote the section on venue together. I worked as a tutor. I ran a security company on the side. We did security for sorority houses. And upon occasion, as needed, I was also a bouncer. So I went, worked at Water Valley, graduated law school, went to work in Tupelo for Mitchell, Vogie, Beasley, and Corbin. When Brian Collier left to go to do his Beeson at Asbury, I took over the youth ministry at Wesley United Methodist Church in Tupelo while I was practicing law part-time. I got headhunted to go to Oxford, to Holcomb Dunbar in Oxford, worked for them for a year, wrecked a van full of kids. Nobody was hurt. Finally figured out God was trying to tell me something. Surrendered to ministry. I was working for Holcomb and Dunbar and volunteering at St. Andrews.
You know, that would run most people off from ministry if you're in ministry and have a rag. I'm a counterintuitive guy. I always go the other direction. Ran back to ministry. Surrendered, call to ministry, applied for jobs. Ended up at Getwell Road United Methodist Church for 2.5 years as the youth pastor. That's where I first ran into Cheryl. She was our district secretary back then. Left there in 2001 to go to Asbury Theological Seminary in Wilmore, Kentucky. And I served as the associate pastor at Richmond, First United Methodist Church, Richmond, Kentucky, for 4 years while I was in school at Asbury. Then I also met my wife there while I was in Richmond. Finished up in 4 years, 2005, moved back. Moved to Tupelo first as the associate pastor at Tupelo first, and was there a month, and Katrina hit. And so for the next year, I was doing a lot of Katrina recovery.
And then my wife finished up her nursing degree at Eastern Kentucky University, and we got married. She moved in, we hung our last picture, and the DS called and said, I got a job for you. So we always have a habit now. We have one picture that we do not hang in our house. We just always make sure it's on the floor. Nobody puts it on we just don't do it. So we went to the coast. I was at Gateway United Methodist Church right after Katrina. We were running 250 volunteers through the church every week. We were Camp Love, if you remember that after Katrina. We had showers running off water hoses outside and all that kind of stuff. That was my church. And then I stayed there 4 years, and then I was moved to Indianola in the Delta for 8 years, and we fell in love with the Delta. My wife was a nurse on the coast, and she was a nurse when we got to Indianola. When we left Indianola 8 years later, my wife was the clinical director for the hospital there. So coming on up, she did good. Mighty proud of her. And I was there for 8 years and had a really fantastic time. Loved the people, loved the Delta. You either love the Delta or hate the Delta. And I fell in love with it. And but, as in anything, and there's a season to everything, and the season of my time there had come to an end, and it was time for me to move on for their interest in mine. And so 3 years ago, I moved here and got to work closely with the guy that replaced me. That was very unusual that would happen. I got to actually speak into who followed me there, which was, again, unusual. And it was a great transition. I intentionally left 4 big wins for him in the first 3 months he was there to set him up for victory, because we're all on the same team. And if we can all get out of the way of our own pride, we can win, and win big. Because when he wins big, we all win big, because the kingdom wins big. So Trey's done a fantastic job there, just knocked it out of the park. I'm very proud of him, and very excited to be here at Maples, and hopefully he'll never leave. We'll see. There's always seasons, but my season ain't up here anytime soon. My wife is a clinical director at Methodist Olive Branch Hospital. I have a 13-year-old son, Andrew, who is probably 5'10", 5'11", wouldn't you say, Brennan? And he's about 235 pounds in 8th grade. So feeding him is a challenge some days. So anyway, and trying to keep him from getting run out on our street, because he's running now all the time, even from getting run over on the street. I got 2 little girls, one that's 11 and one that is 9, fixing to be 10. One of them is the spitting image of their mother, and one of them internally is me, but externally looks like another family member. So anyway, got 3 great kids, love it, great wife. Great life right now. And I am as optimistic about the future of the Methodist movement as I've ever been in my life. Let me just make that disclaimer. Let me say that again. I am as optimistic now as I have ever been about the people called Methodists. Now, I may be an idiot, but that's where I'm at. So, all right. I should have done that at the beginning. And if anybody got any questions about any of that? Anything you want to ask me? My favorite color? My favorite football team? My favorite food? No, we don't have time for my favorite food. Us big boys like to eat. So. I am a lot smaller than I used to be. I was once 361 pounds. I am now weighing in about 260, so a lot better. Still got about 40 pounds to go to get to target weight. But there we go. All right, annual conferences. How many annual conferences are there? I don't remember how many annual conferences, to be honest with you. There's a lot of this, I think it's 36. What's the difference between an annual conference and an Episcopal area? What's the difference?
So an annual conference is specific geographical
Well, he's actually, Makalili covers the Nashville area and the Memphis Annual Conference. That's actually the name of the Nashville Area Annual Conference and the Memphis area.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Holston is served by the lady that was elected out of Holston. Oh, she's retiring this time. Do you ever have that where you know that person's name, you can see their face, but you can't call it? So anyway.
It gets worse as you get older.
It better not. I am hardly making it now. Goodness gracious, I'm going to be walking up and go, who you? Do what? Cognitive, yeah. So yes, the Episcopal area is the area covered by one bishop, and the geographic area that we're talking about is all the churches in the geographic area, organized as basic unit of the church, and it is holder of trust clause, meaning the owner of the property. So the annual conference actually owns the property. In Mississippi, how many of you were around when we merged the North Mississippi Annual Conference? Remember that? All right? So that was a merger of two annual conferences. They were served by the same bishop, and then they were merged. Makalili is merging Tennessee and Memphis, right? And he's staying on next year with them to get them finish their merger, all right? And they did that in Kentucky. Big Red, Bob Morgan, was the bishop here. They called him Big Red because he was redheaded and he was big. So Bob Morgan merged the Mississippi and North Mississippi conferences. Then they sent him to Kentucky to merge the two Kentucky annual conferences, and he did that. So, do what? Part of Kentucky's in the Memphis annual, up around Paducah. Yeah. But for the vast majority of the Kentucky, state of Kentucky, is in the Kentucky Annual Conference. It was once two. It was Louisville and Lexington annual conferences. They got merged into, Louisville and Eastern Kentucky got merged. So, the bishop covers an episcopal area. That's all it means, is the area covered by one bishop. The annual conferences are the organizing units of the Methodist Church. They are the first units that are amenable to suit and service of process. The annual conference actually exists as a legal entity. The jurisdiction does not, the general does not. You cannot sue the southeastern jurisdiction of the United Methodist Church. You can sue the trustees of the jurisdiction. You can sue the general church trustees. You can sue one of the boards of agencies. They're all incorporated. But you cannot sue the general church. You cannot sue the jurisdictions. But the first time you run into an actual legal entity is the annual conference. And they own the church property. They own the property that we're standing on. The local church holds it in trust for the annual conference. Period. They are the holders of the trust clause. They are the basic organizers and organizing units. It contains all the churches within a geographic area that are part of the appointment process. Annual conferences set apportionments. They set apportionments. They pass budgets. They facilitate ministry, whatever that means. I mean, there's 1,000 different things that actually could mean. Facilitate ministries, pass budgets. They set ordination process. The general church sets the standards for ordination. Let's be real clear about this. It is the general church, the general conference sitting in session that sets the standards for ordination, but the annual conferences set the process. Meaning, you're going to do interviews? How many people are going to be in the interview? Who gets to interview? You're going to do it first, you're going to do it in the morning, you're going to do it after lunch, you're going to do it this way, you're going to do it that way, it's going to be written, it's going to be electronic. How many people are you going to have to interview from? How many different times are you going to have to interview? They set the general conference sets the standard. Okay. The annual conference handles connection. What is connection? That's a word we use a lot. Connectionality. Connection. What does connection mean? We refer to ourselves. I'm an elder in full connection. We have deacons in full connection, right? Anybody a deacon in full connection in here? Elder in full connection? Associate member in full connection. Okay. In full connection means that you are fully, gosh, this is so redundant, but you are fully connected to the annual conference as a member, right? In full connection means my membership is not in the local church, it is in the annual conference. My church meets once a year. It's the annual conference. The local annual conference sets up the committees on investigation, committee on conference connections. They handle what happens when somebody needs to change their status or their connection, either voluntarily or involuntarily. All right, Corey, I'm going to pick on you. Let's say Corey decides that God is calling him. Let's say he gets headhunted to go to Oklahoma to be the director of conference youth ministries in the Oklahoma Annual Conference. Okay? So he gets the call and he goes, all right, and he goes out and interviews and they hire him. So him and Heather decide to move. They're going to Oklahoma. He's got this great new job. He has to make connection with, or he has to reach out to Trey Harper, right? And work through the conference to make a request to transfer or to have his appointment be beyond the local church. There's a couple of ways you could go about it, right? You could either be appointed beyond the local church, you could be on loan, or you could transfer your connection to the Oklahoma Annual Conference. Any of those three are possible. Now let's say, I'm going to pick on Jeff. Let's say Jeff messes up. And Jeff messes up big time. Like he has a major problem, right? I'm not going to pick out what it is. You can use your imagination. But Jeff has an issue, right? And so people bring charges against him for this issue. And it goes to who? What happens when that happens? Well, it goes to the district superintendent first, then up to the bishop. Then the bishop listens to it and decides if it's sufficient, it meets a sufficient standard to go forward. And if it does meet a sufficient standard to go forward, then he will assign it to a council for the church. The council for the church then will do a further investigation and bring it on the committee on investigation. That is through the board of ordained ministry. The committee on investigation is made up of lay and clergy. Right? They investigate, then they're like the grand jury. They return the indictment. Then you impanel the trial. And the council of the church acts like the prosecutor, and the person is entitled to representation. That's the way the process works. But let's say Jeff didn't mess up that bad. Let's just say Jeff messed up just a little. Right? And Jeff says, I got to go get some counseling. I need help. He's a wise man. He sees the need. I got to get help. So Jeff goes to get help. He takes 6 months off. How do you handle that? Well, that's handled through the Committee on Conference Connection. They assign you a change of status to leave. That's how that group works, is they allow the leaves to take place. Now, I don't want to get bogged down in this except to say that the annual conference is really where all of this stuff happens on the discipline of pastors, or whether they're taking leave. Let's say Jeff doesn't mess up. Man, he's beloved and loved. He's doing great, shining. His children rise up and call him blessed. But Jeff decides that he does make one very ill-fated decision, that he wants to really try one time his lifelong dream of being a rodeo clown, and in doing so causes some serious bodily injury and he needs to take some time off that way, right? Well, then he could take medical leave, right? It doesn't have to be he did something. He just needs to take medical leave. Let's say Jeff is just holding on too tight and he's stressed out. He needs to take some mental health leave. Same thing. You do it that way. Let's say Jeff gets a call from an international ministry and they want him to come and join them on their international mission field. And Jeff wants the bishop to make that appointment. Well, that's the bishop's call. That's your appointment. I've heard Bishop Swanson explain it like this, and I thought it was really smart. It's the first time he's the first bishop I've ever heard say it like this. And once he said it, I completely didn't understand why I'd never said it this way before. The bishop only makes appointments. Period. He says where Jeff's going. He has nothing to do with the discipline. The disciplining of Jeff, really. I mean, he can tongue wag you, right? He can wear you out. He can negotiate if we're doing, just resolution, right? He can be a part of that negotiation. But in the end, it's up to the Connection Committee and the Board of Ordained Ministry. The Board of Ordained Ministry gives the bishop a list every year of who he can appoint, as run through the Committee on Conference Connections, because they certify these people are appointable. Board of Ordained Ministry says they're viable. Connections Committee says, yeah, they're appointable because they're not on leave. That'd be like Jeff. Let's say Jeff was Jeff Rena, okay? Young lady. And she gets pregnant and is going to have a baby. Well, she's entitled to, according to state law, federal law, 12 weeks, paid 12 weeks Family Medical Leave Act, right? Entitled to that. So we don't have any choice. We got to give Jeff Rena there 12 weeks off. That's the way it is. But we decide we're going to be gracious. The church that she's serving is going to give her 30 weeks off, paid. Well, the Connection Committee has to sign off on that, right? Let's say Jeff's wife gets pregnant. And Jeff says, I got the right to 12 weeks, I'll take 12 weeks. And they say, Jeff, we understand, we want you to really do well. We're going to pay you for that 12 weeks, and I want you to take another 8 weeks off. They can do that, but it has to run through the Connection Committee for him to be on leave. And part of that has to do with pension credits as well. So what I'm belaboring the point is I want us to understand, and this is very important for later, the bishop does not decide who's appointable or not. They do not have the power. In a perfectly working world. In a perfectly working discipline, in a perfectly working world, they do not have the power. Do they have influence? Absolutely. Why? They're the bishop. They like to bish. Right? They have influence. Why? Because there's clergy on there that are sitting on this Connection Committee that are under appointment. And ain't nobody wants to go to Stony Lonesome. Right? Am I telling the truth, Corey? Yeah, nobody wants to go to Stony Lonesome. So, they do not have the power, but they sometimes have the influence. The power is with Board of Ordained Ministries and Connections Committee. Where it works out to be is most often the Board of Ordained Ministry is nominated by a committee that was appointed by the bishop to be the nominating committee, who he gets to submit or she gets to submit their list to and has a lot of influence on. So who's sitting on that Conference Connections Committee, who's sitting on the Board of Ordained Ministry, is largely determined by the bishop, and so they generally work hand in glove. But ultimately the authority is with the Connection Committee. All right. So annual conferences are the chief organizing, or the first time you get to a organizing chunk of the church. But what is the basic unit of the church? What is the basic unit of the Methodist Church? Anybody want to take a guess?
Local church.
Local church, that's right. Local church is the basic organizing unit. What's the difference between a church and a charge?
May have 2 or 3 churches on the charge.
A charge is where a pastor is assigned. A church is an individual standing physical plant, right? When I was sent to Maples, I was not sent to this building, interestingly enough. You know where I was sent? I was sent to the parish. We are appointed as clergy to the parish. Well, where is my parish? Well, John Wesley said the world is my parish. In COVID, it's definitely been that way, right? COVID has changed the way that we look at the parish. But certainly when I first came here, for this church being this size in this community and with its, Corey, help me, with its influence in the community and its history in the community, would that be safe to say? It is a community church. It's not a first church. It's not a downtown first church, because this is not really a downtown first church kind of town. It would be that if it was, right? So this is more than just a station church. It has, to a certain extent, a regional influence. So where is my parish? Well, I got members in Horn Lake. I've got members down in Tate County, Webster County. I got members that drive in from Collierville and Germantown, right? All over. So that's my parish. I grew up in Baldwin in a little church called Asbury. We were halfway outside of Baldwin, out in the rural part of Prentiss County. We had 70 or 80 people attended there when I was growing up. By the time I left to go to college, it was probably 25 or 30. It was on the Baldwin-Asbury charge. It was the second church on the charge. Each church contributed to the SPRC. They did some things together, but they were on a charge together. The pastor was appointed to the parish. Jim is at Baldwin now. Jim Peterman is there now. Jim is appointed to the parish, the Greater Baldwin Parish. If he had been appointed there 25 years ago, it would have had a certain definition. Now it has a broader definition. So what I'm trying to get us to the point of is understanding that even our idea of church has to change, because it really is different than what we think it is. When we say church, we think church as a building, it's this place, this is it, and the people that are in it. In the end, it's a parish. It is a greater parish. All right, so Corey's been appointed here, David's been appointed here, I've been appointed here. Anybody else serve Maples? Okay, so the three of us, over a time, have a continuity of leadership. I inherited from them the work they had already done. And when I leave, I will pass it on to somebody else. And we did it in a parish, right? So Corey is now serving, can I say that out loud? Corey is now serving Wells, United Methodist Church. Mineral Wells. Wells is in Jackson. No. Mineral Wells, United Methodist Church, and is the senior pastor of the Well, which was a church plant a few years ago, came out of Maples. So he's got 2 churches on his charge. Now this ain't a two-charge appointment. It's much more significant than that. But he's serving 2 churches, right? Where is his parish? Well, Mineral Wells has an influence, I'd argue, over most of eastern Shelby County and all the way eastern DeSoto County, pretty much, and out into Webster. No, what's that county east of you? Marshall. Out into Marshall, down south, that it has a regional influence, right? And the Well has been, and it's really interesting, because that has more of a regional church, and then the Well is focused like a laser, really, around Lewisburg.
We have folks from Senatobia who come. We have folks from Horn Lake. We have folks.
Okay, so you're developing a South DeSoto County parish, really, there, right? So, but they overlap with us, right? Greg serves independent, not independent, Pleasant Hill, right? And your parish overlaps this parish too. So you have multiple parishes overlapping. So that if, let's say there is a family that has a major house burned down, huge tragedy and a loss of a child. And they have family in all three of our churches, but they're not really in a church. Well, we all three overlap, parishes-wise. We all three have a connection to that family. And so we all three get involved in ministering to that family. And we do that in a way that's collaborative and cooperative. Because our idea is never to grab that family to be in our church. It is to be in ministry. Right? And that's why the Methodist model of collaborative ministry from day one has been more, I think, the most powerful, one of the most powerful forces for good in the world. We have made huge mistakes. We have gotten whole lots of things wrong. We have not been on the right side of history at times. But this collaborative, overlapping parish model is who we always have been. And it is, I think, our way forward. So Corey and I and Greg can be in the same place, overlapping ministries and never competing, right? We support your homeless ministry, right? We think that's a valuable thing. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We just bless you, right? Corey has, I've not yet tasted it, but Corey's food truck is one of the best in the city, I hear. Like, knock your tongue out your mouth good, right? I don't want to start a food truck, but I can support their ministry, and they're reaching people in ways not reachable in other ways. We can support them, right? I say that to say that you will hear often that we're better together. You will hear people that are for the protocol and against the protocol, all of us using the language, we are better together, and I agree to a point. And I'll talk about that after lunch. But we are better together. There are things that we do because we're together. I am not anywhere as equipped to do some ministries as Greg Hazelrig. He is far better at some of them. He is a far better man, got a far better heart, and I can't do them. But he has been gifted by God to do them. Corey Truitt is able to do things that I cannot do. Maybe never could, but certainly not anymore, right? You may be the eternal youth director. I found out that at 50, I can't do it anymore, right? I can't do it. And now you're doing ministry to the grown-up, the grown populations, right? Not even great cutting-edge church plant stuff, which is so much fun. But like, and you'll grow into that role, right? And you'll find that God gave me everything I needed to get it done. But we complement each other. And that's also true for my friend Innocent, who is in North Katanga province, Democratic Republic of the Congo, who is a translator and a pastor, who I talk to on Facebook. But I connect with Innocent because he's just, he's a great guy and I got to know him. We partner in ways that complement the kingdom work. So I say that to say, as the local church, we are the modular unit. We are the base unit. But we overlap. There is an overlap here where we cooperate and partner together because we complement each other. But I want to even push us further. The real basic unit, if you look at the history of the Methodist Church, has been the intentional disciple group. They called it the bands and the select bands. We call it different things, but that is the basic group. I'm going to give you a name. Kevin Watson. Write this down. If you got a pen, write this down. Kevin Watson has published a book, video, and curriculum on recovering small group ministry, recovering the bands and the select bands. He also has one out on recovering the class meeting model. And it's incredibly good. Any of y'all ever used Kevin's stuff? You have? Have you used the bands or the class meeting?
Yes.
Both of them? Yeah. Is that y'all's model at the well?
Loosely, yeah.
Uh-huh. Just incredible, incredible stuff. We'll be talking about where some of the problems of the church emerged. I got about 15 minutes before lunch, and I want to cover a couple things with you. But let me say that, man, I am an hour behind. Okay. I will say that our real polity issues really arrived when we changed models. There was something happening in the late 1800s. There was a new movement washed across America. It was called the Sunday School movement. And all the Baptists were doing it, the Presbyterians were doing it, and we got fearful that we were going to lose folks, the Baptists and Presbyterians, because they had this Sunday school model. And we moved into doing Sunday school. Now, how many of you are in a Sunday school class? How many of you are in a Sunday school class? How many of you love your Sunday school class? It is the best thing since sliced bread. It is my heart, it's my soul, it's everything. Okay. I don't want to hurt your feelings. And your Sunday school class may be all that, because I have seen them function well. But they only function well when they cease functioning like an educational unit and function as a group of people doing life together in accountability and love. That's when it works, right? But the education model is a failure. Because we assumed that if we better educated people about the cross, about Jesus, about Scripture, all these things, if we did better Sunday school lessons, that we would improve who we were as Christians through education. It was the mindset of the Enlightenment movement, and it just was, that was the thing. People thought that. More educated, the better off we are. And in the end, I can educate your mind all I want to. I can make you the smartest person. I can send you to seminary, and you can get an A in church history, polity, theology, and if it doesn't drop 17 inches from your head to your heart, it is useless. And what the class meetings and the bands is those are life-transforming, intentional discipleship units. We had a major come apart in the Methodist Church twice. We saw some major dips in our growth. The first one was early on in the 1800s when we decided we needed really, really heavily educated clergy, and we put these major educational requirements on us instead of making sure that they were spirit-filled. Okay? The second one was when we moved from a discipleship model to a education model. Turn to page 107 in your book. All right. If you look there, this is a statistical model of the United Methodist Church or its successor entities, okay, over the years and their growth rates. 1790, we don't really report that. 1800, you're seeing about 12%. 1800 to 1810 saw a 168% growth rate. Then you're going anywhere from 53 to 86 to 78 up through the next few years. And then we had a drop, 1860 to 1870. Little thing called the American Civil War, and the church split. So they went through a church split and the Civil War, still managed 10% growth. Then you go 1880s, 47%. Then you see it drop from 44, 46, 30. Okay, so like it's 53, 86, 78, 39, 44, dip for the Civil War, 47, and then it drops to 27. When do you think the Sunday school movement started? in the 1880s. So our growth slowed to 27, then to 22, and then to 19, then picked back up to 21, and then to 18. Then we had a big drop again. 1930 to 1940, World War II. So there you go. Right? 2 big wars, 2 big drops. That's to be expected. 1950, back up to 16%. Not as quite as it was the 1930s. We always talk about the 1950s being this time of massive growth. It was less than the 1930s. Less than the 1920s. Less than the 1910s. So, if you think that the dream era of Methodism was 1950s, it was wrong. If you really wanted to look, it would probably have been 1810 to 1840. $1960 drops to 9.4%. 1960 to 1970, when we merge, 68 is when the merger happened, 0.2% growth rate. 1970 to 1980, in the heady first days of the birth of the United Methodist Church, we lost 10.8% of our membership. 1980 to 1990, we lost 7% of our membership. 1990 to 2000, we slowed the decline from 7 to 5%, but still declined. And from 2000 to 2010, we're down another 10%. Just between you and me, our projections looking at 2010 to 2020 is going to be looking even worse than that. So you can take that for what you will. However you want to extrapolate it or terminate it or look at it. But the United Methodist Church has been in realized decline since its birth. Let me say that again. The United Methodist Church has been in realized decline since its birth. It has never produced a decade of positive growth in its existence.
Except in the Central Conference.
Do what?
In the Central Conference, we're growing.
The Central Conferences are the ones actually slowing our loss.
Yeah.
But that's not big enough to overcome the loss of the church. They are the ones that are growing. They're the ones that are expanding, and massive, expansive growth that's compensating for our losses. By the time we get to 2024, Jeff, a majority of Methodists will live in Africa. Majority, more than 50% of U.S. Methodists or world Methodists will live in Africa.
So you take the Central Conference out, we have a huge, a much bigger.
I actually think if you're looking at the raw numbers, this is U.S. numbers and percentage. Yeah, U.S. membership statistics. This is U.S. as of right now, okay? It is not global. Global, we've got about 11, 12 million, maybe more than that. We're down to about 5.5 or 6 million in the U.S. as of 2020, I think.
So in the future, will there be more delegates from other countries?
The delegate count will rise if we choose to give them fair representation. So about 10 years ago, I got asked to be on a group called the Fair Representation Writing Group. Actually, it's probably about 15 years ago now. And we were fighting for fair representation for every delegate. Do you think the amount of representation for any one delegate to General Conference ought to be based on the real numbers of membership? So, do you think Mississippi ought to get their full amount, but maybe another annual conference ought to only get 30% or 40% or 60% of the representatives they're supposed to, according to the formula? Think that's fair? Does anybody think that's fair? That's what the United Methodist Church has been doing from day one for our African delegates. There has not been a general conference held by the United Methodist Church where Africa got full representation for their membership numbers. And the argument that some people used is, well, we can't verify those numbers. We don't know if they're real. Really? Really? Well, somebody go over there and count noses. I don't know, but this is what they're reporting. I don't trust the membership numbers in Mississippi. How many of you have served a church that you had 1,500 members and had about 300 coming? I could name names. Couldn't you? And I could name some names, right? I called my membership rolls at Indianola. People thought I was a fool. They're like, what are you doing? Calling your rolls doesn't cost you anything. I said, I can't correctly judge who I am and where I am if I don't know who I got. And we went from like 11 to, what was it, 1,200 at one point in time, Jeff? Membership at Indianola First to like 500 or 600. We called it out, dude. If you hadn't been in 3 years or 4 years, we wrote you a letter and asked if you wanted to be a partner. If we didn't hear back from you, we assumed you said no. If we couldn't find a name to go with a number, we said, okay. You know, you have to, if you remove somebody from the roll, you have to do it for 2 years and announce it. But if you do a correction on your statistical report, that's a different story entirely. There's ways to do things. That's all I'm saying. You ready?
When you are ready, and then Sam, we need to come in and make a couple of announcements. Just let us know when you're ready to stop.
Okay, let's go ahead and do it.
Okay.
All right, we'll pick back up here after lunch.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for being here today. I know you're being blessed. And we thank you, Stephen and Maples, for such a warm hospitality. This is Sam Jones, and just a minute, he's our staff here. In just a second, he's going to explain lunch to you. Thank you, Sam, for all you've done. Billy Wellhite, in case you don't know her, is your district director of Lay Speaking Ministries. And I want to remind you that if you are going for recertification of advanced lay servant, you need to do exactly, and he is combining his pre and post course in one thing, but you need to do it and let him know you did it, and then he will tell me, and I'll get your certificate out. You've got to be here today and do the homework that he assigns to you. Don't make it too hard on him.
No.
You're just going to have to rewrite the discipline or something.
No, I'm just having them to read. Let me go back over that for those of you that came in late. If you look on the back of your syllabus, we got to have you read, spend 2 hours reading the articles that's at the end of this timeline, right? There's a bunch of articles, spend 2 hours reading. Everybody reads at a different speed. I just want you spending 2 hours reading. And then I got 2 more hours of work for you, because you got to have 4 hours, 2 on the front end, 2 on the back end. I'm combining mine. Pick one aspect on how we got here, go out and do research and find 5 more articles about that subject, and email them to me. 3 must be less than 5 years old. 2 must be from a scholarly source. Then summarize them in 2 to 3 sentences. Do not, think of this as you're tweeting your response, okay? I don't want something long and involved. Just brief to let me know you understood what was happening. Email me that. Spend 2 hours on that. 2 hours on the first one. We got you done. I'll email your names to Trey. I'll take care of that with Trey. And if you're clergy looking for CEU credits, hold on to the syllabus and your work in case there's any question later on. But I will, once I get all your stuff, I'll compile this, send it to Trey, and along with the syllabus, request the CEU credits for you.
What time frame you want to give them to get that done? 2 weeks, a month?
How long y'all need to do that? You tell me.
You need to do it as quickly as possible because you'll...
Forget.
Right.
Well, I don't have a computer, and I don't do much computer. You're saying, seeing your copy of those articles and everything?
It's the end of the month, maybe? Let's take a month. Before Easter.
Yes.
Take a month.
By the end of March, let's say that, okay? If we hadn't heard from you by the end of March, we'll know you were not
Let's give them to the 15th.
of April.
Tax day. Me and taxes.
Just remember.
That way you'll remember. And if you're struggling on computer stuff, holler at me and maybe we can help you with that.
Yes, and me too, Carolyn. And also, did you give them the evaluation? Or you
No, I'm gonna do that.
He will give you an evaluation of the whole school, and we want you to fill that out before you leave, if possible today, and give it to me. Around 3 Reverend Sparks is gonna wrap it up, and we're gonna all go to the sanctuary, and we're going to have closing communion. And I introduced Sam, Jennifer, tell them what you need to tell them.
They met me earlier, I think has everybody, if you have not registered for the door prize, we're about to draw. So anybody missed that? Corey Truitt, you're not allowed. And so, it's just not.
All right, now I'm gonna let Sam tell you how we're gonna do lunch for this group. Thank y'all for being here.
I'm gonna go to
All right.
Watch it be what you're on.
Whenever your esteemed teacher decides lunch break is,
We're done.
okay, you'll come out here and go into the place where you got coffee and snacks. We got Panera Bread sandwiches and chips. We got turkey, we got barbecue chicken, we got chicken salad sandwiches, and we've got something called Bravo, whatever that is. It stands for something, but everybody really liked it down the other end. So, please let us hand you the box, and Billy will have drinks for you as well. We got water, Sprites, Cokes, and I think that's about it. Some Dr. Peppers, and a couple of Diet Cokes left. It's been popular. So, and then you'll just come around. You can either eat in here. I've got some tables set up in the room next to the kitchen. If there's room in there, if you'd like to have a table, you can go in there, and it's almost nice enough to eat outside. So,
Now, okay, let's bless the food. David Laird, pray for us and bless the food.
Father, thank you for the day, for this time together. May it enrich our lives, enrich our faith in you, and help us, Father, even draw even more appreciation for our Methodist heritage. We ask now your blessings on this meal. In Jesus' name we pray.
All right, we're going to try to start back in here at 12:30, 12:35, somewhere in that range. If you can do that, if you want to come and eat in here. I'll be eating in here, and so I'm available for questions if you want to roundtable discuss or anything like that. I'll be sitting right here. All right, thanks, guys.